What broke your heart completely? My grandmother raised me. My dad died of a sudden heart attack when I was 8. My mom never got over it, started drinking, so my grandmother, who was 74 at the time, took over for caring for me and my little brother. She broke her hip when she was in her late 90s, and she had to be put in a nursing home. I would go visit her. By then she had started living in the past. She knew me, but she thought I was still in school and would ask why my brother wasn't home, what we wanted for supper, things like that. One day I went to see her, and didn't recognize me or know who I was, and didn't speak. That was the most heartbreaking, gut-wrenching day of my life. That broke me completely. I went to my car and cried like a baby for a long time. She died at the age of 103, but that was the day I lost her. I didn't cry at her funeral. I watched my wife pass from brain cancer, and the effects were similar. Her humanity slowly melted away till she was a vegetable. Our hopes and dreams we had worked so hard for were gone. It's been nearly 2 years and I still have problems hanging out with young families because they live the dream that was robbed from us. What broke my heart was our daughter asking to talk to mommy on the phone. One day she even walked out the door because she thought mommy was coming home and she needed to find her. We walked till she gave up and I had to explain death to a 2-year-old. 30 is too young for this. Edit. It's been 18 months since she passed. She got sick during her last trimester of pregnancy and had a C-section and brain surgery the same week during COVID restrictions. I've been doing well. I inherited some of her friends who became aunties to my daughter. Both families have been really supportive and my in-laws still treat me like their son. My wife's assets are transferred to my name. I get child benefits and a widower's pension, and I have a great job, so I'm not struggling to make ends meet. I rebounded back pretty good. Her decline was slow, so I got to grieve, buy degrees and work through it with her. I also got a new job that paid 60% more than my last one, and focused a lot of effort on being a good dad to show her that she didn't have to worry about us. And she never did. She hid things from me, but she never expressed to anyone that she was worried about me. Just sad that she didn't get to enjoy life with us. I took mental health seriously and developed healthy coping mechanisms to manage. I also accepted it and treated it as a normal part of life. According to therapists, this is 90% of the battle. And once she was gone, I had so much caregiver fatigue that I wasn't overly sad. In fact, I was tired of being sad. Eventually, I was able to close this chapter of my life and treasure it. I still struggle with a few things. There are parts of my life that are blacked out. I sometimes get death anxiety when I go to sleep. I get very sad at children's parties because I see people living the dream that was robbed from us, but also very happy because 3.5 years of lockdown, COVID plus caregiving make me grateful and easily pleased. Most of our marriage we didn't have much money. We lived within our means and stayed out of debt. To buy a house we closed on one right before she got sick. Now I have more money than I can spend and feel guilty socking away 1/4 of my take-home into retirement. What little faith I had left in God vanished, and I'm quite cynical and nihilistic. There is a hole in my heart that will never be filled. The experience gave me an unshakable confidence that only people who overcome something terrible can get. Next challenge is to translate that into dating when I'm ready, and I think I am. 2 things. Losing my dad suddenly to a heart attack less than a month before my 21st birthday. I completely missed the chance to bond and develop an adult relationship with my dad. After that, I made sure that I really treasure and built a strong relationship with my mother. We were already best friends, but I didn't take her for granted anymore. I'd go over for lunch or dinner 1 to 2 times a week and we'd have endless laughs. And I'd always tell her how much I loved and appreciated her. 2 months out from my 29th birthday, my mom suddenly died of stroke. This hit me hard. To lose my main pillar of strength in my life was an emotional blow I still haven't recovered from. Since then, I've inherited and managed to buy my own place. A wonderful advantage at 31, but inside, I have never felt more hollow. If it weren't for my wonderful fiancé, I would honestly question the point in going on. She is the kindest person I know and is a big part of my motivation for continuing and excelling in life. I used to be such a completely joyful and unbridled personality, completely insulated from the harm that life can bring upon you. I miss that version of me. I'm still a good person. I still extract joy from a lot of what I do in life. But I still feel like parts of me died, along with my parents. Thanks for asking this question and allowing me to put into words what I've been through. when my husband and I got pregnant for the first time. We were beyond excited, planning the future, then went to our 10-week appointment. First ultrasound to be told there wasn't a heartbeat. Repeat ultrasound 2 weeks later showed it had never developed a neural pole, what turns into the brain, spinal column, or cardiac activity of any sort. That it had basically just stopped developing for no reason they could tell. That a miscarriage was inevitable. My husband is a very stoic man, usually doesn't show a ton of emotion. Him crying with me about broke my heart. To end the comment on a better note, though, that was late October, early November last year. We got pregnant again fairly quickly and we're 33 weeks, with a healthy pregnancy so far. Realizing my dad actually is the father and more that I grew up begging to have. I just wasn't worth the time and effort, but his girlfriend's kids and grandkids are. They've gotten a lifetime of someone that unconditionally loves them, helps them, travels to see them, calls them regularly, has in jokes with them, makes them laugh, buys them gifts that they've wanted because he knows who they are and the things they like, tells them stories and lets them in and learn about who he is. Meanwhile, I've begged for him to let me be a part of his life since I was 4. Only just clicked this year has got everything and everyone he needs without me. In just an obligation and the only one that's fighting to have a relationship. My mom died when I was 50 after a 10-year battle with recurring oral cancer. She never smoked a day in her life either. Just got unlucky. Her death was incredibly painful. However, there was something that happened a couple of years prior that I think broke my heart first. Bit of backstory. My mom was a children's librarian. She also worked at a children's bookstore for a while, and one of her favorite parts of her job was getting to do story times for the kids where she'd read to them and they'd do activities she prepared, etc. For as long as I knew her, she'd read to me and my sister some us lullabies and was always there for advice or encouragement or any other reason we had for talking with her. Words are a very important part of my life and were always central in my perception of her. And the way she showed love. Then they had to remove her tongue when she first told us, and once it had registered that I would likely never hear her voice again, I completely broke down. That said, she did still manage to speak some. I strongly believe there was nothing that could have stopped her from that, but it was nowhere close to how she could before. She actually made some audio recordings for us the night before her surgery, personal messages, my favorite lullaby that she used to sing to me, and a couple of my and my sister's favorite picture books that she used to read for us. I still have them to this day, and I am forever grateful they exist. My husband suffered a severe traumatic brain injury over 10 years ago. He was not at fault in any way. Our children were 8 and 10 years old at the time, and I was in my early 30s. After around 7 months in hospitals, I brought my husband home as a diagnosed minimally conscious state patient who requires around-the-clock care. While I do have nursing, it is not consistent, so I fill in several 12-hour shifts a week and have done so for 10 years. Our children are grown now. They are healthy and well-rounded adults, for which I am abundantly grateful. Losing my husband was the greatest heartache of my life so far. He is here, but not. He loved me deeply and fully, and we were best friends. I fully appreciated him in every way. He was in always my person and I was his. Not one thing in my life has brought me so much happiness and joy as meeting him and falling in love. We would have been married for 13 years by the time he was injured, and while we are still technically married, it is hard to feel that way. Our relationship now is one of caregiver and patient. Our kids have moved out for work and college and to live their own lives, which I encourage because I have not wanted to drag their lives down with our tragedy. They need to build their own futures, and that has been my driving force from the moment the fog of initial shock lifted after my husband's injury. But goddamn if I am not unhappy and sad. I am perpetually a small trigger from crying at any moment, and I was not a crier before this all happened. The unhappiness is now an integral part of me. Sadness is twisted into my core like bindweed around a willow. My 30s are long gone. He is fairly stable because he is cared for so well in his own home, so he will likely live another 10 years or longer. And that means my 40s will also be devoted to his care. I cannot put him into an institution because to do so would wreck me completely. The internal conflict of seeing my life go away day by day spent caring for his body, the years falling away to never be regained, while also wanting to give him the best care possible, is something I cannot allow myself to think about. It is too painful. I still love this man so much. I miss I feel guilt for even mourning my 30s. I feel guilt for being surprised by how much my face has aged. I am stuck in 2014, when the injury happened. I could write so much more, but this is already too long. I married my college sweetheart after dating for 5 years through college. Then, 6 months later she had an affair on me. The affair lasted 8 months before I discovered it was happening. My life fell to pieces. Then I decided to change things. I left the US and moved abroad. After living in a foreign country for 2 years, I met a woman. We fell in love and she was the thread that kept me sane and connected to society. After her and I were married, I discovered my mother was going through cancer back in the States. It was also during COVID, which meant traveling was near impossible. Not to mention that I was unable to afford being able to travel. I could not afford to leave my wife behind and quit my job. Then, the next summer, I discovered my wife was having an affair with a businessman in Singapore. This crushed me to a point where I don't like to be around people. Currently, my life is good. I spent some very difficult alone time hiking 3,500 kilometers through mountains along the east coast of the US. In that alone time, I learned more about myself than I've ever known. I also dealt with my demons. I'm still very much an introvert and prefer being alone. But I have a good wife now. She's incredibly talented. She deserves to have a man who is not broken and loves her unconditionally. I'm not that man yet, but in doing everything I can to become that man. The biggest lesson I learned is the things that make life difficult are stepping stones that lead to other opportunities. I've also picked up a mantra that I say to myself during good times and bad times. Everything is as it should be. My fiancée breaking up with me 6 months before the wedding because her family was sure. My family was poor and got into her head so bad she started nitpicking everything I did. They actually acted like she was the dumbest person on earth to marry someone like me, and she just couldn't take it anymore. I swear I would have been better off if she cheated on me than that. After that day I actually do not remember anything that happened for the next 1.5 years. I have no recollection of anything. I also quit my job, so I guess I just existed at my family's house until I had a wake-up call and got my shit together. I do not have a happy ending, by the way. I have a nice job that lets me visit other countries several times a year for work, and I guess that's nice, but relationship-wise I am done. My childhood best friend was very much like a brother to me. We were inseparable. When we entered high school he tired of being compared to his older brothers by his parents, and rebelled. One day his mom was dressing him down in front of me and then asked him why he couldn't be more like me. At that point he began to distance himself from me until we just weren't spending any time together. When I was 25 I took a job out of the area, so I looked him up thinking that I might not ever see him again. He was happy to hear from me and invited me over. When I arrived, he and his friends were playing pool, getting drunk and giving each other tattoos. Realizing I no longer had anything in common with him, I stayed perhaps 5 minutes and left. 30 years later I tracked him down. I was going to be in the area and asked if he wanted to meet for lunch. He was very happy to hear from me. He was married and had 2 adult children. We met for lunch, and despite the fact that he looked awful, the hard life he had lived, due to a combination of bad luck and bad choices, was evident. It was like we were kids again. The same sweet guy I palled around with, who at the time was more of a brother to me than my own brothers, reappeared. We vowed to be in each other's lives again. It was great to have him back. About a month later one of his sisters called. He had gone out for a walk the night before and never returned. The next day he was found dead in the parking lot of a nearby office complex. An autopsy and security footage from a camera told the story. He had stopped to get something out of his day pack when a lifetime of smoking finally caught up with him. He had a massive heart attack and died instantly. I cried on the phone with his sister for half an hour. I texted my wife, who was out shopping with our 2 kids, what happened. When they got home my daughter found me and said she was sorry to hear about what happened. I thanked her. I figured I was over the initial grief of it all. I went into the kitchen to find my wife. She put her arms around me and told me how sorry she was about what happened. I just burst into tears. Growing up he truly was my very best friend and more of a brother to me and my own brothers. I had a grandfather die, uncles and aunts, but I was expecting that, and they weren't particularly close to me. My friend's death was the first time I lost someone truly close. That was in 2016 and I still think about him often. When my therapist asked me what I wanted most from my neglectful parents, I told him all I wanted was for them to hug me close and say they're sorry, to tell me that they tried and even though they messed up, they can acknowledge that they're human too. My therapist leaned forward, looked me right in my eyes and said, "I'm so sorry, my name, that will never happen." Stayed with me for a while because it was the sudden realization that my parents will never change unless they wanted to themselves. Something I subconsciously knew my whole life, but I didn't want it to be true. Growing up thinking that today will be different even though it was always the same. Even though it tore me, it was eventually helped me accept them for who they are and made going and see so much easier because I don't see them as mom and dad anymore, and I haven't since that day.